everyone. I'm Dr. Heather Houston, Director of the Francis A. Carnes Center for Gifted Studies here at the University of Southern Mississippi. Thank you for joining us for this month's Eagle video. If you haven't had the opportunity to join us before, please look back over the introduction to Eagle videos and the video for October that dealt with understanding mastery and helping to provide mastery-based differentiation for gifted students in your classroom. Remember that EAGLE is our acronym for the idea that excellent activities generate learner engagement. November is a month when we typically turn our minds toward the topic of gratitude and thankfulness. Students' gifts and talents are things that they should be thankful for. We believe that it is the best time of year to talk about providing feedback to students. Appropriate feedback can help students understand how to best use those gifts and talents. Appropriate feedback can also increase engagement because students have a greater understanding of what is expected in your classroom and how to navigate your expectations successfully. Before we discuss the practical steps you can take to provide good feedback, let's take a few minutes to think about why appropriate feedback is so important for our high ability students. Gifted students are prone to various negative habits of mind or poor metacognitive habits, such as procrastination, succumbing to imposter syndrome, or failing to adequately assign value to their efforts if those efforts do not yield the results they wanted. Helping gifted students understand the value of their efforts is of utmost importance. If we want to improve our students' metacognitive habits, we must be mindful of our own. When we make the mistake of praising students in a general sense, instead of for specific behaviors, we perpetuate the student's belief that their abilities simply exist without effort. According to Siglia-McCoach, while it is true that gifted students often acquire skills more quickly and easily than their peers, they still gain such skills through learning. They go on to say that it is important for gifted students to recognize that the talents they possess are acquired and that they are capable of further developing these talents. To put it practically, if we consistently say to gifted students, "Wow, you're so smart," the students don't necessarily know what they did to make us call them smart, especially if the student found the work to be very easy. Instead, they learn to equate the word smart with easy. So for students who believe that smart equals easy, what happens in high school, college, or adult life when something is suddenly difficult? Rather than attributing the difficulty to their need to develop a new skill, students who believe smart equals easy will internalize this experience and begin to believe the opposite is now true. They say, "Well, that was hard, then I must not be smart." We must help students learn that smart does not equal easy. Instead, smart means knowing when you need to develop new skills and when you need to ask for help. Providing effective feedback shows our students that they have the ability to make wise learning decisions for themselves. When we toss vague compliments about their character, like "you're so smart," their way, it's highly unlikely that our students will take time to make meaningful connections between our comments and the work they have completed. We see the results of this lack of analysis all the time here at the Carnes Center. Numerous students have told me things like, "I used to be gifted." They rarely say, "I used to be in my school's gifted program." Instead, they say, "I used to be gifted." They don't mean it flippantly, and often they go on to discuss the class or the situation that was difficult for them and why they believe that that event proved their lack of true giftedness. Without help to change this thinking, they may never understand the lie within that statement. We can prevent this misapplication of thinking by giving focused feedback like, "You did a very good job of using descriptive adjectives in your paper. and by helping our students to develop thinking that embraces continuous improvement. Giving effective feedback doesn't just end there. Multiple institutions have conducted extensive research on the best practices of giving feedback. Let's look at a few of those best practices now. 1. Use specific feedback rather than vague compliments. Vague praise can backfire. A study discussed in EdWeek discloses what happened when different groups of students were given different types of feedback. Students who are vaguely praised prior to being given suggestions for improvement were less likely to utilize that feedback than those who were informed of specific strengths and given the same type of suggestions for improvement. Let students know exactly what you see and do not see in their work. Research shows that students prefer technical or practical suggestions beyond just seeing a general rating or range in which they scored. 2. Prioritize feedback in your classroom. Structure your classroom so that students learn the skill of applying your feedback to their work. When we create a culture of improvement and growth in our classrooms, students do not fear feedback, but learn to use it appropriately. Build time to reflect on feedback into the learning process. Researchers at MIT suggest using these specific strategies. Identify common errors in student work and take time to create a mini lesson explaining how to correct the errors. Work through sample assignments and give students the ability to respond through group feedback activities or polling tools such as Slido. Allow students to use the grading rubric to provide feedback for one another. Finally, build opportunities to reflect on feedback prior to turning in a summative assessment. This can be done when you break large assignments into milestones, provide feedback, and ask students to incorporate the feedback into their final work. 3. Tie feedback to the grading rubric or assignment instructions. When offering a student feedback, it is better to point out the rule or element of the rubric that needs to be improved. Explain how what they did does not fit into the rubric or instructions provided. The University of Oxford tells us to identify strengths so that the students know what to continue doing. We don't want students to change the one thing they were doing well because they were trying to guess what we wanted them to improve. 4. Identify the most important improvements to be made. Help students understand the impact of making the adjustments you suggest. Avoid trying to correct all of the mistakes you see at once. Too much red ink can be overwhelming and demotivating. Find the most logical next best step for your student to take and focus only on the errors that fall into that category. Once that is corrected, then move on to the next logical best step. 5. Refrain from including your emotions in your feedback. Rather than saying, "I love how you worded this," say, "Your word choice in this paragraph shows that you have mastered vocabulary at the appropriate level. This phrase shows insight and clarity of thought." Focus on the work, not the student's character, by saying what met the criteria and what did not, without adding value judgments or statements of how proud or disappointed you are. Apologize when you make a mistake. If a student points out that you have made an error in grading, identify whether or not their claim is true. If it is not, explain to them why not. If it is true, tell them you appreciate how well they paid attention to the rubric and adjust their grade appropriately. Please let us know if you found this Eagle video helpful by liking and subscribing to our channel. We would love to hear from you about the ways that you are able to use these suggestions in your classroom and would love to help you improve your feedback game. Send us your questions about feedback or share your success in the comments below. We are so grateful that you chose to spend a part of your day with us here at the Carnes Center. We would love to see you in our Educator Development Program and invite you to visit our website to see if it is what you've been looking for to boost your teaching skills. Thank you for everything you're doing to challenge your gifted and high ability students. They need you to speak up for them when they can't. And when you do, you make their day golden.